everyone, to the 58th Healthy Dialogue podcast. It's been it's been 4 months since I've been on here, and I do apologize for that. I guess internally I've had some new realizations with how I wanted the content to go, but I think the biggest observation that I've had towards content that I made in the past and content that I've made recently, I think it's a lacking passion today that I don't have as many things to talk about or the kind of depth that I'd want to be presentable to people in the first place. I don't even know what I was supposed to talk about like months ago when I made like promises of creating content like every week, but I think the best dynamic that I'd like to have, at least on this platform, is to be able to be passionate about something that I talk about and something that can be inspiring for other people. I've gone through a couple of different transitions for content that I watch, people that I listen to, had I guess a bunch of different shifts in my work environment too. I was able to onboard one of my closest friends over to the company that I work for, and I'm in the process of trying to get someone else over there too. But actually, I think contextually, when I had made content in April was when T-Mobile actually laid people off, around like 20% of the company. Now they're laying off around like 7% of the company now. Like this happened last week, last Thursday even. So it was it's been a rough time as of recent, but yeah, other than that, just chugging away at responsibilities, trying to be a better, well, yeah, trying to be a better software developer for what T-Mobile needs me for. Um, what else? I have a girlfriend now. She's over in Malaysia. Love her. I know she listens to the podcast, so she might be embarrassed when I say that. I've met a few other people along the way, about like two new people since I think the last time, like last April. Few people have kind of disappeared. One person definitely disappeared. Like, I think that might have been in March. I think that was in March. Yeah, that one person in March, I think, fully disappeared. But some other people have been kind of weaning off my radar, which I don't think is that great. I was hearing some advice, like completely off topic, by the way. Then again, like this whole update part of my outline is supposed to be about that. Completely off topic, but I had what was it? Shit. Now I don't even remember what I was supposed to be talking about now. Oops. Um, damn. I have some other news that I would like to bring up, but now I'm really trying to think about like what I was about to say. It was something very important too. I just completely whiffed it. Anyways, unimportant stuff. Golfing. It's now like a pretty common passion for me and my friend group now. So we do some rich people sports like every other weekend or something like that. We kind of do it on our own time at this point. Like everyone does like their own thing. One of our Alon actually has like his own group of people that his network even just goes out and plays golf. So yeah, it's been a weird 4 months since then. Responsibility wise, I've been able to uh, keep up with, well, it's not really keep up with my weight, but I've been trying to moderate it, and then I've also started some exercising habits, which I can confidently say habits because it's been over 21 days since I've started like the running thing again. So I do, there's a common loop that I do around my house or like in my neighborhood, and it's a nice run. It gets my heart rate up, lots of hills, a little bit of downhills. Yeah, it's great. I remember part of what that important thing was, and it was like advice from like Jordan Peterson or something like that. And I heard it once, and I was I remembered it, and I still don't even know what he said that was that important to me in context of that, of whatever thing I was trying to say. Um, anyways, so I think the new way that I'd like to be generating content as already listed is when like things come up as passionate, or like I have like passions about something that I want to talk about. Today it's going to be about the paradox of choice, which the alternate title going into this, because I've actually thought of this topic for like months now, because of several different contexts where I've heard it from. So I thought it was very intriguing as like an idea that I wanted to get out there. And not just for like my friend circle, who I kind of know most of them will like listen in on podcasts whenever they come in, which is great. It's great. I'm sure I've already like pitched the idea to them multiple times, so this is more of like a repeat of an idea that I've already talked with them about. But for other listeners who I think at one point were very passionate about like the content that I was making, I know there's people around the world who were listening, and forever thankful for for you guys and supporting and listening to what I have to say. Usually what I have to say. Sometimes it's multiple people, but yeah, it's I had to realize, like re-realize like why I was making this stuff in the first place. And I want to say I got myself into like a political rut for the past like year ish. A lot of it was like conservative content, and by no means am I saying that like I'm alienating myself from that, like that past Spencer and who listened to that content all the time. I'm still like a fairly moderate person. Someone had to correct me on that like months ago. It's like I'm not conservative as a person. I actually have like a lot of moderate takes, liberal takes, and conservative takes. So, like in the context of American politics, there's a lacking lacking practice of listening. And very recently I've been getting into this guy named Vivek Ramaswamy, and he's, man, great listening skills, great articulate skills, very patient. He's like the ideal presidential candidate that I could have possibly hoped for. And well, according to like the Spencer of today, Spencer of like 8 years ago really wanted Bernie Sanders, and then it's kind of been like I haven't experienced passion for like presidential candidates in a long time. And then I was even seeing like signs on the street that are pitching specific people for like local government, and I was just so uninterested after when seeing that stuff, and I was like, damn, if only I had the same passion for like presidential national political spaces as I did for local spaces. But these local spaces don't, as long as they don't like fuck me up that bad, then whatever. But you know, the people at the top definitely can fuck you up really bad. Like economy wise, it's been disgusting. Like we actually, this kind of ties in with the topic of today too, but yeah, just economy wise, I've been looking at like houses for years even, but it was definitely apartments by like early last year, and the prices just kept on rising. Everything keeps on rising. It's pretty disgusting overall as like an economy, the US economy anyways. So now kind of at a point where we're waiting for shit to die down a little bit, but yeah. Let's see if there's anything else. Oh yeah, I tried to get my passport last week. So last Monday, I tried to, well, I went into like a UPS or like a whatever it was, fucking post office, and I tried to try to go in and then do all that stuff. They took in my birth certificate, and they took a copy of the birth certificate that I like already pre-prepared for them. So they have both of them, and like my mom just kind of looked at me like, "What the fuck are you doing? How could you do that? Why why did you just hand over your birth certificate like that?" And I don't know. I thought they needed it when I was at the counter and I was like paying for my stuff. I was like, do you really need my birth certificate? Like that seems like the real one, not the copy, and it just feels like, man, that sucks. Anyways, respond. I wonder what I meant by desires for the future in my like updates outline. I created this stuff yesterday, and the reason why I'm trying to be pretty straightforward about like getting this one done and not waiting till Sunday is because I know if I wait till Sunday, I'm probably gonna feel differently about the topic. I'm probably not gonna want to talk about it. So yesterday I said, Spencer, you're just gonna get this done. And I was like, yeah, okay, yeah, thanks, Spence. But also ties in with the part of the topic of today, which, speaking of, topic today is paradox of choice, silently robbing fulfillment. And the reason why this idea I think has come about for so long is because I've been listening to multiple people talk about several different things, but given this context of having choice related to whatever context, yeah, whatever context that it applies to. So when I had mentioned earlier about like choosing a house, and that actually comes out to be a broader perspective of, can I, as a 26-year-old, start living independently with a full-time job, complete benefits and whatnot. I've got a salary that can, pay towards a mortgage. Why don't I go do it? And honestly, the conditions are just ridiculously bad. But say I like that choice versus the choice of, you know what, maybe you should just man up and just like go ahead and just buy something. Get something off the market. Just go to like Vegas, anywhere in Nevada, anywhere in like some no man's land kind of area and just buy property. Why don't you do that? You just work remote. And I don't know, man. I think the responsibility of having choice like that is difficult. And you can obviously justify either side, which is like, yeah, at one point I'm being a pansy by not like buying something and becoming independent, starting something up and just getting that life experience. But on the other hand, I'm sitting at home. I'm still just chugging away at work, and I'm mostly dependent on my parents for like across multiple dimensions. I take on responsibilities that I can, I guess, but it's definitely not enough like anywhere towards what like the responsibility is of owning a house or taking care of someone else. I feel like I'm being taken care of while I'm at home. And part of that is like somewhat knowing that the dynamic of being home is both my folks know they're one day they're probably going to need to rely on me more than more than ever, or like their lives actually depend on it. And so I kind of see this as like an exchange of like good faith in the future that I'll do the right thing for them. Like I'll make it right. So it's not that like that's toxic or anything. I think that's more just like a parent child relationship. So, I pay for certain things. They pay honestly for a lot of it, and they have like the whole house paid off, which is great. But yeah, it's the you have like an infinite amount of choices in life, and this is like a particular dimension of independence that I'm like focusing on. But I think a lot of the other conversations where I've heard this paradox of choice is in context for like relationships and partners. And when I had heard those the first time, I connected a lot to it in the sense that in the paradox of choice, the infinite possibilities to choose from, seemingly infinite possibilities, but the actual word to use there is overwhelming. It's an overwhelming amount of possibilities to choose from. the choice making isn't great and actually could cause you to just not make a decision at all. Like you could be so overwhelmed by your freedom to choose whatever you want that that you end up like losing out on life experience because of it. And in the context of relationships, the way that you would see that is you're looking for potentially the best partner that is possibly out there for you. And so you're evaluating everyone on like the most unrealistic standards that you could possibly forge in your mind and critique someone else for, in hopes that there is someone who actually has all the criteria of that unrealistic expectations that you have for someone else. And that's like, when I was thinking about that, it was such a dehumanizing, it correlated with like the dehumanizing argument that I've had from before, which is if you're evaluating people on certain criteria, then you're not really evaluating for who they are. Like who they are is on the scales of which you've artificially created. And you're not actually taking in the entirety, the uniqueness, the individuality of someone else if all you can do is categorize them across spectrums of criteria that you have. And I think, unfortunately, for both romantic and platonic relationships, that's the kind of dynamic that ends up happening. But then it doesn't even stop there, because it actually grows out into other areas where you're trying to maximize towards a particular choice. Why would you optimize for, I don't know, like an okay house to go for when you could make the choice towards the best house, the most optimal choice, in consideration of a house? So, and like, what's great, well, I guess I've already introduced the the name of maximizer, but that's like an actual coined term in this paradox of choice. So the way that people look at situations of freedom of choice is that they optimize for the best. And the coined term for that is maximizers. And I aligned, or rather I saw from my own perspective and experiences, that I was a maximizer in a lot of scenarios. So instead of looking for, I don't know, I think between when I was 24, so when I had started this podcast all that time ago, I want to say I was someone who really believed that there was someone who, oh my God, words. I really believed that there was the one out there. And we even created topics revolving around that. And like, that's great. I don't even think what I'm about to say is contradictory to what I believed in the past. I think the past, or rather the present, is a buildup of the ideas that I presented in the past. And that is, there's a new element to have when it comes to finding the one. And it still kind of fits like the idea that there could be someone who's like perfect for you. But a lot of what I've heard from advice on the internet, across that was such a poor way to give anyone hope of the idea of I'm about to present. But podcasters that I've heard, psychologists that I've heard, they actually propose this idea that relationships are something that you build up with someone else. So the perfect, excuse me, my headset just turned off. The perfect person with the criteria that you have in mind doesn't exist. And a large part of the emotional bonding, like some of the criteria that are things that you even need to build up into finding in someone else. And I think I saw a huge shift in like my in the way that I engage with romantic relationships, probably in like later 24, early 25, which was more towards this other coin term, which is a satisficer. And basically the coin term means is that like instead of emphasizing the best choice, you emphasize like a good enough choice. And that's even like a poor way to say it because yes, there's the by comparison, there's the optimal choice, but then there's also a really great choice still, you know? And so I think the way when we had like talked about here's like a contradictory statement from before, I think, or at least the idea of finding the one. Finding the one, and I guess puts in belief that someone someone is out there and they're the perfect match for you. The only problem is you never know when you find that person because after every interaction with okay, say if you have someone who is the one, who you think is the one, then 5 years down the line, you actually realize that there's someone else who comes into your life that is more like your envisionment of what the one should be. And that's like, not only did you just discredit the idea of the current relationship that you have, or your current relationship, excuse me, not only did you discredit the current relationship, you're now proposing, or rather following, who the new one person is. And so I, a lot of the, a lot of the conversation around like finding true love and whatnot, and finding that one person, whatever, I, maybe I believed that like in the past, but some of the advice that I keep hearing from like people that I follow, they say not only do you build those relationships with other people, but instead it's more of your ideal relationship isn't the one true the most optimal match with you. It's someone who actually pairs up with you across like a shorter span of dimensions. So your criteria is actually reduced to like a more fundamental list. So instead of all the like particular desires that you'd want, like in my case, is like a foot fetish guy. I'd want someone who has like the best feet possible. But that's like what the fuck. Um, I'm not really entitled to someone who does have like the best feet out there, but I something that I think would be really good in a relationship to keep me engaged at least is someone who has like really good feet, you know. And that's just like one example. For that's definitely different across like like everybody else, and that unfortunately a very shallow way of that idea to come out. But you get my point. I think in a several, yeah, like 2 years ago when I was 24 as well. It's like at one point I had the idea that the only person, like a good person that would be compatible for me is someone who games more than I do. And that's not really the case. Like I'm very happy with the relationship that I'm in right now. And she doesn't game at all. I mean, she games like very minimally and not really any at all at the moment. But point is that we create like these artificial desires of what we think the other person would be like. And I even felt like I was justified in creating that particular criteria. That seemed like a very in line with my current self kind of criteria that I was proposing. So it was, I don't know, it was definitely weird when I kind of transitioned out of that. Like, I guess I grew up. Maybe that's the best way to put it. It's like the when you engage with the realistic expectations of what other people like, when you engage with the base of people that you would consider like your significant other, I guess you start to realize what is like a realistic ask and what isn't. And I think by where I am to, well, I mean, that's a very shallow statement too, because I might be contradicting myself in the future, but I was about to say, I think the present me of today actually has like a pretty realistic set of expectations that I'd want, or desires that I'd want from someone else. And I think they're justified because there's like several people who could like fulfill that role. But in fact, I've been very surprised and enthusiastic about the relationship that I have today because of how well it works out. Um, Great dynamic, great person, and man, I really could not be happier. It's been a wonderful ride for 2 months. That's how long we've been in one. But yeah, anyways. So I guess part of the outline was supposed to describe what the study was. I've heard other people talk about context of, say, if you have 1,000 items on a shelf that are all supposed to like fulfill a specific functionality. So say you have like 1,000 brands of toilet paper and you have to choose one. Most people, I think everyone doesn't really care about toilet paper, but for the for playing out like the situation, just for any other item, actually, it might be better to envision something like that. But say if, yeah, you know what? Let's do a different example. So if 1,000 sets of like cars. So say if you have like 1,000 cars, different types of cars, brands, whatever, you want to choose like the best one for you because like that's a decision that matters. In context to me, anyways. Some people wouldn't care, but it brings out the maximizer attitude of trying to find out like the right choice for you, like which of these cars is going to best suit the needs that I perceive to have of the future, and as well as like how do I balance that out with my desire, my current desire. And so it's a some people would be very overwhelmed by the choice of 1,000, but people were also arguing you'd be there's a much better satisfaction rate if you only were given three choices and you had to make the best choice of three. And that could be on any kind of spectrum of like maybe two are super shit and then one's good, or like all three are shit, all three are good. The fact is that like the overwhelmingness, I think, really applies to the multitude of choices that you're given. And I think that's how it's described as the paradox of choice. I kind of believe that it robs your fulfillment because, at least in my case, for certain situations where I've been given the choice to do certain things or given like a paradox of choice, I just end up like not making a choice. And I think that's like part of the issue that these phenomenons and contexts end up becoming. So it becomes an issue of not knowing what to do, and being indecisive actually leads to the lacking life experience. But I think in general, now that I think about it, you don't even need multitudes of choices for that. Say if you were to maybe I'm met with this choice all the time. What if I want to go out and just, I don't know, go to a club? Go to a club tonight. Why would I do that instead of staying at home, or stay at home and just play video games all day or like the rest of the night? And I don't know. I don't really like harp on myself or feel like a hindrance or feel like my fulfillment is being reduced because I'm not going to a club. But say if you were someone who actually had like some internal the choices were so connected to parts of your identity that you wouldn't know which one to go for. That could also be a robbing of your fulfillment, because the paradox of choice between two things that you want to pursue but are conflicting actually make for a pretty unpleasant situation where you have to make a choice. So I can see that happening too. But yeah, there was a study that I had linked in the outline. I'll probably link it in the video as well. Um, oh yeah, one point that I wanted to make, and I think I'll actually probably let me read through my outline really quick, because I might just cut this whole video short, or this podcast short. I don't think it needs to be too long. I don't want to exhaust myself anyways. One thing I will say as I'm reading through this is that I think one of the next podcast ideas that I want to throw out there is humbling narcissism. And I think narcissism is something that it's something I both experience, and I think I'm also being robbed of fulfillment from it too. I think it's a behavior that actually ruins a lot of my relationships as well. So, no, actually, we have a couple more things to talk about. So, there's this a couple certain ideas. Sorry, a few ideas that I think are actually somewhat important to at least throw in your heads. I don't know if I even have an answer to them, but the reason why, going like further back in that outline. So I make this statement: nothing wrong with freedom. We need to be able to handle the growing amount of options presented, as certain content as most contexts now offer multiple choices. I actually want to go back on that, because I think I want to take a step back and say we weren't even presented options. I think we were only given one option, not more than one. I don't think we experience life in belief that there were multiple. The same way that I don't experience life between thinking that I need to go out to a club tonight and being at home playing video games. There's no option to make or option to choose. For me, anyways. So I somewhat think that in the context of choice, you probably experience discomfort. Choice equals discomfort. I need to think about that idea. Actually, I'll let you guys think about it, and then I'll go over to the other point that I wanted to make. So it's like about three quarters, well, pretty towards the end, but like an interesting question that I came up while generating the outline was, how do you overcome the optimal versus satisficer mindset? And I think in that paradigm, or that phenomenon, when you're experiencing just like an optimal viewpoint, or like a optimal worldview, if you're are you downgrading your standards from the optimal set? So like if you're looking for a romantic partner, why would you downgrade your standards in order to go with something that's just okay? And at one point in time, I even made that decision to downgrade, I guess, if you want to call it that, or just be more realistic, depending on how you want to like view view that situation. Especially when you're coming from the optimal viewpoint, it doesn't feel like a realistic downgrade, or like a you're changing your standards to be realistic. It feels like you're downgrading your standards. So how do you make that shift between optimal and satisficer? And I think I guess a couple points down, I gave the antidote that people gave advice from what I've heard in my own circles that like the one becomes the one through the effort that you put into the relationship. So you build things up with other people is kind of how it's basically how it goes. So you can't like I guess that is like a pretty realistic way, or rather a mindset to have when you're trying to choose for realistic standards over the optimal standards. But you know what? I think I do have an answer. I think the reason why you choose to be a satisficer instead of someone who is a maximizer is when you realize that maximizing actually robs you of the happiness of what a satisficer might experience instead. I think satisficer as a mentality is a very marketable point. And the reason why I phrase it like that is because when you see people out in the world, you realize that they've made a lot of satisficer choices along the way. And that could be revealing in, I don't know, maybe they're a couple with someone else who doesn't look clearly not the best looking person in the world, not a Ryan Reynolds by any means. But everyone makes like sacrifices towards the choices that they make in order to achieve fulfillment. So if you're looking to achieve fulfillment in whatever way that you feel like your standards are like holding you back from, maybe it's better to choose a satisficer mindset instead. Really evaluate if your maximizer standards are what they need to be, are like truly necessary in your evaluation. Maybe it's best to go with something suboptimal just to get something going. Just a thought. Yeah. Actually, I want to hit this last point as well. I actually really enjoyed that point, so I'm glad I was able to pull something out of my ass the first time back. So, uh, first time back in 4 months, and I was actually pretty happy with how that last point went. But the, well, second to last will be second to last. The very last point that I wanted to make was, I guess I tried to tie this in yesterday with the paradox of choice through the evaluation of my own life experience. And I think the way that you can convert this paradox of choice, this overwhelming, infinite, conceptualize like the infinite choices that you can make in your life. Am I doing the right thing right now? Is even like hosting this podcast currently, is this the best thing that I should be doing? Should I be, I don't know, exercising right now? Should I be having this Propel as a drink? Should I even, I don't know, go do something that like that's been on my mind for the past year? What why am I not like doing all these different choices as I'm conceptualizing these choices as I speak it? And by the end of it, I think a large a large part of that energy starts to become kind of self-hatred, because you could be like losing 70 pounds in one day. You could, I don't know, become like the next Nobel Prize winner for something incredible that you want to do. I don't know. There's like a lot of things that you can compare yourself to as like an option or even perceive that as like a choice that you can make in life. And yes, I think in this world of freedom, you do have the options to be able to do whatever you want. But maybe it's better to be okay with what you're doing. And I think there's obvious cases where you shouldn't be okay with what you're doing. And maybe obvious isn't even the right word. Maybe what I just said was false. Maybe you never know what you're doing. And you never know what is obvious and what isn't. But it's a journey that you're navigating at the same time. I mean, life is something that you're constantly interacting with, trying to get feedback from to know if what you're doing is actually the right thing that you're doing. You don't even know if what you're feeling is a true indicator of what's morally right or wrong. You don't even know if what you're feeling is even worth your time. So maybe it's all just too much for us to even individually handle in our own biased analysis and the biases of others' analysis of our performances in the world. Do I need to be optimizing my life to achieve the same outcomes that people who have high achievements have been able to get out of their efforts? I don't actually know. I think, yeah, one of the very last, like, bullet point that I made in my outline is, are you wasting energy believing your life is worse than optimal? And Spencer of yesterday, yes. Actually, I do very much agree with that. But I think that's a battle that you constantly have to remind yourself of. Because either we were taught to believe that life could be better, or like your life is worthless because it isn't optimal. Either we're born with that, we're taught with that, or maybe just everyone experiences that. Like culturally, technologically, our modern our modern day society, whatever, promotes that kind of thinking of comparison. So we roll it back and try to find the meaning that helps us perform the best we can be. Wow. All right. Well, actually, I think I'll call it on that note because I think we're actually, yeah, we're done with everything here, and I'm kind of happy about the last 2 points that we made. So again, one of the outlines that I want to make for the future, and I promise it won't be a 4 month long span before the next podcast. In fact, I might even get it done this week. We'll see. But the idea of humbling narcissism, and I guess we'll see how that outline turns out. But yeah, thank you guys for listening. Upload this across everything as per usual, and I guess one final pitch, advertising pitch, is the Healthy Dialogue Discord server actually is more more active than here. So yeah, I usually throw like a bunch of ideas out there, mostly political, sciency, communication, whatnot. Like anything that I find like interesting, I kind of throw up in the Discord space. So feel free to join that. And yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for listening.